Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Carla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. Are you ready to take a life-changing journey? Join me for a hike per week or 52 hikes within a year at 52hikechallenge.com. Gain the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also gain access to community, education, resources, and more. Plus, get 10% off on your sign up and first order with code RISE25. That's RISE25. See you on the trails. Hey friends, getting outside and hiking changed my life back in 2014. Now I want to share an even bigger adventure with you all. This October 2026, I will be leading a small group to Nepal to trek the iconic Annapurna circuit. Join me on a powerful journey through the Himalayas that challenges your body, expands your mind, and connects you deeply with nature and each other. This is more than a trip, it's a milestone. And if trekking Nepal has ever been on your bucket list, I would love for you to join us. Spots are limited, and you can learn more on our website at 52hikechallenge.com. Click on the Events and Trips tab, and then Adventure Trips with 52 to learn more. Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, episode 13 of season 4. This series is all about hiking basics, and I really hope that you're going to learn everything you need in order to be a safe hiker. We are building upon some of the topics we've already talked about in this season. But for today, I am going to talk all about the importance of education when it comes to getting outdoors. There is so much to learn about being outside, and of course, if you're going to make a commitment to something in your life, one of the top things you can do for yourself is to learn as much as you can about the subject. 2014 was when I took my first 52 hikes, and I didn't know anything about the outdoors at the time. So throughout the years, I have learned a lot. One of the things I did was take the wilderness travel course by the Sierra Club. That gave me a really great understanding of being outside, but they go above and beyond. Since then, I've taken a lot of other courses, including how to travel safely in the snow. I've taken classes and courses on ropes. I've taken mountaineering courses, online courses, navigation courses. It goes on and on. And so my hope is that as you undertake this hiking journey, the 52 Hike Challenge, that you'll get serious about learning as much as you can about the outdoors. Whether you read an article in the evenings before going to bed, maybe you look up some YouTube videos. Those are all great things that you can do as you are taking this challenge and learning, right? There is so much to learn. And I feel like you learn by getting outside. You learn what works for you, what you should be carrying, what you don't need. For example, if you want to learn how to backpack, that's a whole subject in itself. There's so much to learn, from how to pack a pack, what works for you, what doesn't, testing out your gear when you're out there, taking classes on food and how to pack food. There is just a plethora of things to learn when it comes to being outside. So I hope that you will consider taking some of these classes. There are online classes. We have a Hiking 101 course that's very basic, but at least gets you prepped and ready. And then we've hosted tons of classes online, and we still do that. We host classes that people can join when they subscribe to our challenge with a upgraded package. They get access to quarterly meetings, and then we still offer them for everyone to watch after the fact. But those that are live get additional perks for joining and get to ask questions and all of that. Joining community, asking questions in the groups are other really great ways to educate yourself and to learn more as you're getting outside. Some of the things that you can take courses on are navigation, map, and compass. And I touched on this in our last episode of this podcast. I showed you some basic navigating skills, how to look at a map, but there's still so much more. You taking an actual class with a paper map, with compass, with a teacher there, I would say is so important. REI has these courses available. You can check your local schools. You can check the Sierra Club, do a search online. That's really something that I would suggest you first look into. That would be a starting point. Other things you can do are obviously you can check out books. I just recently have been talking about the author that was on our podcast earlier this season, and he was sharing about his book with hiking perils and how to avoid them. And his book had a great section on navigating. Another really great resource is the Mountaineering Freedom of the Hills book. And that has a lot of information for hiking, for mountaineering, for rock climbing. It just has a ton of tips and information. So this would be a book that I would say look into. You can look into the books that are offered at the library. I was looking at my library, and there's this book I have called A Woman's Guide to the Wild. It's your complete outdoor handbook. It actually has a lot of chapters with a lot of different information. It talks about how to build a fire, women's menstrual cycle and how to deal with that, health outside, camp kitchen. It has a lot of different tips. So anyways, that would be another example of something that you could look up. So as you're getting ready to think about camping or backpacking or just hiking, as mentioned. Of course, there are things that you want to do, like educating yourself on maps and how to read them. And we talked about this in our last episode. So that would be another great thing for you to sit down and think about, hey, this week I'm going to look into the 10 essentials, make sure I have them. Next week, I'm going to look at my maps and start getting used to them. I'm going to download All Trails and I'm going to get comfortable with it. Another thing that I want to touch on is the importance of using or getting trained with basic CPR, emergency, in case something happens when you're out there, knowing how to treat yourself. There are really great classes. Of course, first aid and CPR, you can usually take that with the Red Cross. Other organizations offer it online. You can do it in person. That's always a great skill to have. And I believe that expires every 2 years or something like that. So you might have to redo that and refresh yourself. But there is something called wilderness first aid, and that is more specific to outdoors and how to deal with scenarios and situations outside. So I would highly recommend that class if you haven't taken it. It's just great information, and if you get into some sort of trouble or maybe someone you run into, you know how to help them. Even looking up videos on what to do in case of emergencies, what to do if you come across a certain kind of animal when you're on the trail. Those are all great things that you can do. And as you're doing your research, you would find out, hey, what kind of things may I come across when I'm on this trail? If you also read your All Trails reviews, it might say, hey, there was a lot of poison oak. So then you could be more prepared, right? And do your research. How do I treat it? We've hosted tons of classes on these kinds of subjects. Our YouTube page would have a lot of those, or has a lot of those classes. I will add the link to our YouTube page in the show links. So another thing that you want to think about is how to treat yourself for blisters and how to keep your feet in order. There are so many resources out there. I think even following certain social media pages is great because it's going to help you to ensure that you know what to do and how to take care of yourself. I guess I'll just jump into safety because even though that was going to be a whole separate episode, it's just giving you this information to think about ahead of time. There's so many ways to consider being safe outside. And those things include starting on easy trails, starting small, not doing too many miles when you're first starting out, being safe, always thinking about taking care of yourself, because you can always go back to the trails, but if you get injured or you get into a situation, that may cause an issue with you actually being able to go back and redo something or learn from the situation. That's what we want to avoid. We want to take care of ourselves. Make sure that you're always thinking about safety first. The trail and the mountain will always be there. Being aware that you might want to show off and be like, I did this crazy awesome thing, and that's not worth your life. And so I think that's something we want to preach here, is safety is so important, and that's why the educational component is key. The more educated you are, the better off you're going to be. Start by going near your home. Try not to force yourself or push yourself to feel like you have to go super far away from home. Just start on your local trails, your nature trails. Again, going back to learning what kind of animals you're going to come across, what kind of flora and fauna are you going to come across, how to deal with those things. What if you come across a bear? What if you're in an area that has grizzly bears versus brown or black bears, and how do you deal with those respectively? I'm not going to get into those specifics in this episode, because I want you to go and do the research and go and find the information out from a really valid source. The National Park Service is one of my go-tos when it comes to advice with how to deal with certain animal encounters. In addition to even how to deal with weather and how much water to bring, that's what I like to get my advice from. Knowing what to do if you come across a snake, that's another important one. What kind of snakes? All of that good stuff. And know that typically if you come across animals, they really don't want anything to do with you, but knowing what to do is really great. For example, if you were going to Montana and you were going to be hiking somewhere where there's potential to run into a grizzly bear, you would want to know what to do. If you brought bear spray, you would want to practice beforehand on how to make sure it's accessible and how you would deal with pulling off the safety and making sure you know what distance to shoot from. There's a lot to learn. I know we do actually have a class we did on bear safety, and he gave a lot of great tips on how to do that and how many feet away you want to actually spray from, and then how to spray properly. So yeah, that's what you would be doing as you're getting educated and thinking through all of these scenarios. I want to say that when it comes to safety, a lot of times the mind is going to make things up and make it scarier than it needs to be. Recognize that's a part of things. Try to get grounded when you're thinking about things. Social media in general can really scare us, where the reality versus that fear, you can put that into perspective, okay? In all my years of hiking, I've come across bears and snakes, and they've never been as scary as the mind has made it up to be. And at this point now, I feel pretty good about encountering animals and knowing what to do to take care of myself and to take care of the animals. Remember, they don't want anything to do with you as much as you don't want anything to do with them. And then just be smart. Even taking like the Leave No Trace course, which I didn't talk about earlier with the education, they have a free course you can take and get a certificate. It even talks about how to know how far to be from an animal by doing the test with the thumb. I'm not going to get into it because you can go take the class. It's just good to be aware. Other things to think about when it comes to safety, again, is the weather. In places like Arizona, where it's difficult to go hike in between April and September, when do you go hiking? What times? How do you navigate that? Or, for example, if it's freezing or if thunder and lightning are going to be in the areas that you're going to be in, you need to know how to deal with those scenarios. For example, I've talked about this in other episodes. In Colorado or New Mexico, we have thunder and lightning that come in the afternoons after 12. So people typically get up really early and they summit and they're down the mountain by noon. So those are things that you would need to know, but also are going to keep you safe, because the last thing you want to do is be up on a mountain and weather comes in really quickly and then something happens. So you can do a lot to avoid incidents from happening to you. You just need to prepare and be educated, okay? So that's why I keep drilling it in this episode. Other things that you're going to need to consider and think about is if it's hot, going earlier or later. What if there's muddy trails? What do you do? How do you deal with that? I've been on muddy trails. First off, Leave No Trace talks about this. You want to kind of stick to the middle of the trail, not go off trail, because that's going to create erosion and problems. So obviously having good footwear that's waterproof. You also want to make sure that you have good grip. I've been hiking and it's been really slippery and muddy, and then it's going downhill. So that's not fun, possibly slipping. So just knowing maybe you need trekking poles for those trips. I talked about those thunder, lightning, snow issues. What about if it's cold? What about if a big wind comes in? How to deal with that? Usually when it comes to having wind, having a windproof, waterproof jacket is really helpful. And always having that extra layer in your pack. Thinking about having a GPS unit and how to keep in touch with someone if you don't have cell service, or making sure you let someone know where you're going and when they can expect you back. So for me, I let my boyfriend know where I'm going, and I will always check in and out with him. In addition, I share my location services with him and my son and a couple other people. So that's something you can think about, sharing your location with someone that you trust, so that if something ever happened, they would know how to find you, or at least be able to find where you last were and all of that. Another part of this safety is managing risk. And there is so much to learn about that in itself. And that is things from when you're out hiking, and if you see something ahead of you that looks dangerous, whether it's a water crossing or maybe you see a big area that has tree stumps, paying attention is really important, because you can slip and fall. You can have an injury because you were not paying attention. So learning how to manage risk. Let's just say you're hiking, you realize now there's supposed to be a stream crossing, but it's now a raging river. You would want to basically manage your risk and say, do I have what it takes to cross this safely without getting swept away? And if the answer is no, turn around, go back. It's not worth your life. And that's what is really key here, is being able to manage whatever's coming up. If I'm going up in altitude and I suddenly start getting really nauseous and sick, and I'm 2 miles from the summit, but in those 2 miles, anything could happen. So I think it's best if I go back, really listening to yourself and that inner intuition and guidance. I always preach that is so important. When it comes to being safe too, going solo versus going in groups. I know some people like hiking alone, and I know some people don't have people to hike with. This is where getting comfortable, being educated, getting started small, as you build your confidence, then it's okay. I go hiking on my own often, but I feel really confident in my navigation skills. I feel really confident in my intuition. I feel really confident because I've traveled all around the world, and I've taken road trips and gone camping on my own. I've done a lot. So I've actually built up to feeling confident in that. But in the beginning, you're not going to feel confident, and it might feel scary. So you have to take the baby steps. And in the beginning, it's great to ask people to go with you. So joining groups, as I've talked about, we have many groups online that people have met up with other hikers, or we have chapter events that people go to and meet people. So the groups are really key, and finding other people that are going to be outdoors and want to go outside together is really a great way to get comfortable. Whether you're joining a group like Latino Outdoors or Outdoor Afro or your local hiking clubs, that's a great way to make connections. I've made some of my best friends through that wilderness travel course that I took, and I still go hiking with some of those people. And there's one person in particular that I travel and hike with, and we've gone on so many epic adventures. So once you meet your tribe, you will probably be hiking with them long term. So know that you have to put yourself out there, but it's awesome and worth it. Yes, I also believe that there's great things that come from solo trips and adventures, but you're just going to be safer if you at least have one or two other people with you, okay? So if you're going to go solo, start small, go local, get comfortable. That is key. Tell your friends and family, ask them to come along with you. Encourage others to get out and to join you on your 52 hikes. Of course, We want to avoid situations of you getting lost because that can feel very scary and feel unsafe. This is where taking classes, knowing how to navigate, being able to track via GPS if you have that is going to be key. That's why this episode is so important. Share this episode with your friends, with people that are new to the outdoors. Let's all take care of one another. That's the best thing we can do. There are other things you can do. Go on docent-led hikes. Sometimes your local parks host these gatherings, and you can go on their website. Other organizations have events. Trail maintenance organizations have things like trail maintenance projects and things like that, where you can meet people using your tools like we've talked about, like your All Trails. There are other platforms that you can use to find even other hikers, meetup.com, that kind of thing. And I briefly touched on river crossings. It's just something to think through, that if you're ever going to go on a hike that has river crossings, know how to deal with those scenarios and make sure that you're prepared. The last thing I want to close today out when it comes to safety is groups are great. Know that sometimes you're going to be in a group and not everyone is going to practice leave no trace. Not everyone is going to get along. Not every group is going to stay together. There could be parking issues. This is where, for us, we have a training where we help our leaders. And actually, I'm going to announce it now. We have a new nonprofit arm called Beyond 52. It's still in the works, but we're going to be offering free leadership training to all. We've been doing this for over a decade. We've helped a lot of leaders help people get outside. And so now we want to offer that to everyone, just so that people have an understanding of what it takes to lead a group successfully and being safe. So I'm really excited about that, and look out for more on that in the future as we continue to develop and grow that. But in the meantime, just know that going with a group is great, but also it comes with its own set of potential things that could happen. Some people have anxiety. I've led tons of events, and actually most of the time people in the beginning say, hey, I was really anxious to join, but now I feel so much better and it felt so great connecting with others. And it's fun. It's a fun way to get outside and to get to explore something new with people who you can talk to and connect with and make new friends. We're all for it. We truly believe in the power of connection outside with a group of people. And of course, most likely, if you do your homework and you've got a good leader, then it should be a positive outing. So I'm really excited to help you all to continue to be safe outside and to just give you things to think about when it comes to being outside. I know that there's so many more things that we could talk about today, but this is a brief overview of what to think about when it comes to education and safety. And I am so glad that you spent some time listening and getting educated, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the podcast. Please share this with your friends, and we look forward to seeing you soon here. Have a good one. Happy trails.